Hi, I'm Amber, also known as the Lone Star Keto Girl, and welcome to the Lone Star Keto Podcast. Today, I have a special guest with us, two special guests, Brett Lloyd, Thankful Carnivore, and his wife, Danielle. And Brett and I, we're pretty good friends, so, I'm just going to warn you right now, I cannot be responsible for what he says. Okay, I'm just going to say. And while I got your attention, how about you hit that little subscribe button right now? Just get that out of the way because you know you want to. Okay, here we go. Welcome, Brett and Danielle.
Hey, thanks for having us, Amber. It's
Hello.
great to be here.
Yay. All right. Okay, let's get to the nitty gritty.
Go for it, darling. I behave, I promise.
Well, I'm kind of hoping you don't to some degree, but remember, I'm not responsible, okay? I'm just saying right off the bat, I'm not responsible. I don't know. All right. So the first thing that I kind of want to ask y'all is, who was it that actually decided to change their diet lifestyle and why?
That was me first.
Why?
Well, in the beginning, it was in 2015. I looked in the mirror one day and saw that I was at 289 pounds. I looked like an imminent heart attack or an imminent stroke. And so I started low carb as I understood it, very imperfectly. But
yeah, I'll interject here to say that he did a short stint with quote unquote low carb, Brett's original version of the Atkins diet when we were still back in South Carolina some years ago. And he successfully lost some weight then. So at this point, fast forward 2015 and he wanted to lose weight again. He thought, well, I'll just do what I did before, which was, he cut out certain carbs. Certainly didn't cut out all the carbs. He was not a big vegetable either.
Potatoes, let me guess.
Yeah, it was like, get rid of the potatoes, get rid of some of the bread.
Potato chips.
The chips.
Yeah.
Cakes, for the most part, except for white chocolate. And mints. I was still ate a
lot of mints. I
was still a mint junkie. Sugar addiction was still in full swing. Of course, I was totally ignorant. I was oblivious to anything nutrition-wise. It was just completely not in my purview.
You just knew that had worked before. So.
Yeah, makes sense.
And I knew that I was at a very dangerous place, health-wise, because I was so incredibly obese. My skin looked horrible, just horrible, pasty, reddish, around, just that unhealthy, dull,
Mm-hmm.
That was me.
I know what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I couldn't, if I didn't make an immediate change, I was at risk of not living out the year, most likely.
Yeah. So you started. Now, Danielle, when did you jump on board and how did you start? Did you start just with keto also, or like how did you?
I had always eaten a certain way. I was brought up rather European style, and I have a lot of food allergies, so I was already being very careful with what I ate, and I ate, 99.9%, homemade meals and all of that. So he did his Brett Atkins thing for quite a long time, and then after he discovered Dr. Peterson and Dr. Baker and Amber O'Hearn and some of these other people on YouTube, and I was watching these videos too, and they presented a very convincing argument. Of course, I didn't really think I had much wrong with me. I did want to lose weight, but I thought, well, if I lose 10 pounds, I'll be happy. And so when he went carnivore, I was like a month behind him. I said, okay, I'm going to do low carb. And I had tried actually the month before that to substitute things and do more of the keto type thing and using different things other than regular flour and all of that. And I found that you can't really fake real food. You can't really try and make the same things that you were eating before, and except make them out of, coconut flour or whatever the hell crazy things people are doing in those bread cloud things, which are really just little egg souffles, and then you let them fall, and then you pretend they're bread, and that kind of.
all this stuff.
Oh, I tried all these things.
Ancient grains.
Yeah, I got the ancient grain.
I want to try this.
Stuff, and none of it really worked. And
Gave it all away.
Well, I thought, okay, well. So then I decided, well, okay, I'll try, just go low carb. So I cut out the pasta, and I cut the bread down to where I was only eating French bread. I was eating very little of it. And so I ate more meat, but I wasn't real big with the bacon or any more than I had been before. And I still eat a variety of meats, but that first month I lost like a bunch of weight, like really easily. And so that made me really happy.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So I was like, well, this is pretty great. And I really was very reluctant to go to carnivore because to me, I thought it was very boring.
Wait, let me guess though. Did that one right there bully you into carnivore?
No, but he kept telling
me
all roads lead there. All roads
like he did me.
So it's like when we quit smoking, he quit smoking. We're talking, 15 years ago. He quit smoking, and he kept telling me, "Oh, you don't have to quit." And it's like, okay, if you keep saying that, obviously I have to.
I know how he works. I know how he did me with carnivore.
And so I didn't really want to, but I also at the same time I couldn't deny the obvious benefits. It was very obvious that not eating all these carbs, I was feeling much better. I easily lost weight, and so it's like, dang it. The dang thing works.
I want to jump in.
No, isn't that the worst though?
The exact quote was all roads lead to meat.
Yeah, he kept saying that.
And I've
heard that.
I never pushed her because I knew the minute I started pushing her, she wouldn't do it. No. It would have taken a vision, an angelic vision or something to convince her at that point.
Now I don't miss vegetables at all. I occasionally think about fruit, but I don't think about it the way that I used to.
Right.
I used to think, well, I like fruit and also it's really good for me. I know now that I don't need to eat it at all.
Right.
So I don't really think of it in those terms. If I had to choose something, I would probably eat some berries every now and then or something like that. I mean, it's funny. He makes fun of like what I eat sometimes. Like I make roast chicken and he goes, "Oh, it's a weak bird." It's like, not if you eat enough of it, it isn't. If I make a 6-pound chicken and my son and I can eat the whole thing, well, hey.
And they do. I've never seen anything like it. And to me, chicken now, and it wasn't like this before. I mean, before carnivore, I loved chicken.
Yeah,
I never turned down chicken.
I made chicken tenders or some other kind of stuff, but he never liked like roast chicken. He never liked what I would make, like sauteed chicken with a cream sauce and stuff like that. He never did like that kind of food. He was a meat and potatoes kind of guy. He didn't want a salad. He didn't want a vegetable or any of that.
I wanted my baked potato or my mashed potatoes and my meat and whatever ridiculous thing. I might be drinking milk. I might be drinking grape juice.
Now, pizza and bread and potatoes, he really liked that, and his dang margarine. Now, see, that's one thing. I always only use butter. I really didn't care for margarine, and sometimes I felt compelled that I should use it on some things because it's so much cheaper. But I never really liked it much. It was just, always butter.
I only had margarine. Like unless it was accidentally on the table when I had bread or something at a restaurant, I never had butter in my house, like ever. And I take that back, unless I baked with it, like it specifically called, those cake recipes with the butter in them, and then you melt it. Yeah, okay, I did that. But other than that, butter, no, it was margarine. So it's crazy.
I genuinely like the taste of margarine better. I think looking back on it, I think it has to do with the fact that we're not aware of what we're not aware of. And,
I think
the inflammation, the brain fog, now I just the thought of margarine makes my stomach rumble in protest. Country
Oh
Crock.
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That stuff was so gross. And he would break out, and I would try to tell him, I can see how much you're breaking out compared to how much margarine you're eating. And there was a direct correlation. But it's like you couldn't tell him that. You would never believe that. It was what he was eating. And I would tell him, you really don't need a little bit of potato with your margarine. You're supposed to have.
Oh, this is fun. This is fun. I like all this telling on you.
I was cooking for Cocoa Puffs then, so it was like she could have been speaking the gospel truth 24/7, but it was all filtered.
Some of it is how you're raised and what you're used to eating.
Right.
And I grew up eating French cooking for the most part, and some Italian, some other European stuff. I never ate fast food.
She never had biscuits and gravy in her life until she met me. I fixed her first batch of biscuits and gravy.
Wow. I was from Oklahoma, and my mother made us grits when we were kids, and I love grits. But the sloppy kind in the bowl, though, not.
And that's so funny because Texas, they kind it's like southern kind of, but we're like our own country kind of thing, and so grits is not really a thing here. I mean, we have our Tex-Mex and barbecue. That's our thing. So people think
I don't even know if it's a thing in Oklahoma, other than I grew up with it. Maybe I'm making assumptions.
Yeah, I have no clue. I don't know. I've never really known too many people from Oklahoma, so I don't know either. But okay, so this is for both of y'all, whoever wants to answer first. What was the one thing after going carnivore that kind of shocked you, that surprised you? A benefit or whatever. I'm assuming it would be a benefit, but what's the one thing that kind of made you go, wow?
Which time?
Well, I can answer for sure that for me, it was definitely the brain fog, which I wasn't really aware that I had.
Wow.
Was not aware that was an issue until my morning grumpy went away. And I had never been, I've always been a night person. I'm actually still a night person. My favorite time of the day is after everybody's gone to bed and there I am by myself. But in the mornings, I got up early for years, like after I had kids, and then it's like you never get to sleep late again in your life with your job and kids and everything else. But I always, in the morning, I had a routine. I had to get up, and I would have a couple of mugs of coffee, and I didn't want to talk to anybody. Just please don't even talk to me. Let me slowly become aware of the world around me.
And
everybody knew that, from him to the roommates that I had years ago. And I mean, even when I was a kid, though, it was a little different in the morning. You are pretty much, kind of left alone. And plus, you're going to school, and I wasn't getting up quite as early as I am now. But that was a really big thing that I noticed.
The morning that all that changed, she came down the hall. Now you gotta realize, when she would usually come down the foyer here, I might wait till she walked in the room and then give her a peck and then go run and hide. It was if you didn't do that, if you tried to start a conversation, everybody was going to suffer. So she was going to get angry, and then she was going to make me angry, and that's a crappy way to start the day. But this particular time, she's walking through there talking politely, nicely, initiates a conversation, and sits over here.
I don't even really know how it started, but I came in the room, and I sat down in my chair, and we were just talking. And then he said, "You haven't even had your coffee yet." And I was like, oh, that's weird. Usually it's like I make a beeline for the coffee pot. I have it set, on auto brew, and so it's waiting for me when I get up in the morning. So that was an interesting thing. And then, over time, we also realized that we were just able to converse better, to plan things out better, and that was a huge difference, above and beyond all of the physical things that we both were noticing for things that were similar and things that were different that felt better physically. The mental thing really kind of shocked me. And then you start thinking about how does that affect people and mankind on a global basis.
Yeah.
When you think about
Seriously.
that, when you think about just the little difference between the interaction between the two of us, and I thought, wow.
Whoa.
There
Yeah.
are major implications when you think about it, even tiny
Yeah.
changes.
So my answer to your question was the thing that shocked me the most was my eyesight improving.
Agreed.
You know, that just blew me away. You know, many years ago in South Carolina, you know, I'm in my 40s and I go to get my license renewed and I couldn't read the dang line. And so I had, you know, glasses restriction.
Yep.
I had to wear eyeglasses.
Yep.
And then I lost my wallet and had to go get my driver's license renewed. It hadn't been quite a year that I'd been carnivore. And took my glasses and we go to the DMV dreading it like everybody does. And we walk in there and I said, well, I got my glasses, ma'am. I'll go ahead and put them on so I can read that line. She said, no, sir, you need
She
to.
goes, try it without them.
And I could read the bloody line. Perfect.
That's crazy. That is crazy.
No problem at all.
Yeah.
And it just so happened that she pulled up on her little screen my previous driver's license picture and then my new current picture.
So it was like a perfect before and after, right?
and I was just dumbfounded. I've heard of all these other things that people have had improve, but I haven't heard anybody say their eyesight got better. Who would have, I never would have imagined in a million years that would have happened. And then the other one right behind that was on the 10th morning, I woke up without joint pain. And that really freaked me out because I felt like instead of a 57-year-old man, I felt like a 15-year-old kid from here down.
Wow.
And I took 2-mile walks in the mornings then, and I'm literally skipping down the sidewalk, giggling to myself, going, this is crazy. Because I'd never been diagnosed with arthritis or anything. You know, I was 57. I'd fallen down and gone boom.
When you get older, you start getting all these aches and pains that you kind of ignore because they kind of creep up on you really slowly. So you don't really think about it until when you're getting up from doing something. You're like,
and it was all I was unaware of how many joints I had that were causing problems until they all went silent.
That's crazy.
It's nuts.
For me, like I have old injuries in my knees and my foot and you know all these things, and plus my shoulders and my hands from work, and the improvements were really, you know, amazing, really amazing. So, I mean, I can't recommend it enough, really.
That is
at
awesome.
the very least, I say to people, at the very least, please, you know, just cut out all the carbs that you can. Don't eat the oils. Don't eat the, you know, you really don't need all those vegetables.
You don't need all those vegetables.
You don't
have to eat that rainbow.
I mean, isn't that funny when you think about it? When you think about vegetables, how do you make them taste good? Well, you have to, most of them you have to cook them a lot, or you have to put something on them. And what do you put on them that makes them taste good?
Meat.
Fats.
Butter,
you have to put fats on them.
Lemon juice for me.
Butter,
I always squeeze lemon.
Cheese. Yeah, I mean, lemon is okay.
Yeah.
But if, you know, the people who put lemon are the ones who are trying to lose weight. So if you don't have to lose weight, what would you put on it? Hollandaise
Butter.
sauce, butter, cheese, you know, ranch dressing, you know, mayonnaise, whatever. I mean, you put all those, so fat is what makes things taste good.
You're making my tummy rumble in protest.
Okay, so
literally, when I hear about the thought of eating vegetables, literally makes my gut turn over in protein.
I just don't even really think about it.
Me either.
One way or the other, it doesn't really. I walk by in the store and I just
Oh,
It's
I
just
could
like
care
this-
less. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't
exactly.
care one way or the other.
I just comment in the
They
grocery
don't
store
gross me out. I just don't care.
about the beautiful colors of poison that they have set out for people to admire and
Well,
purchase.
what bothers me about a walk past in the store is you notice, like, especially if you go through like Costco or Sam's or any of those stores, and you just see pallets and pallets and pallets of all of those products made from grains. I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
it's mind-boggling the sheer quantity of the snacks and the chips and the
Yeah.
cereals and the cookies and the crackers. And I mean, it is endless. And then all the sweets, and it's like, my God,
They never
why is this junk
Yeah.
like 90% of the food in this store?
and they didn't run out of any of that
It
crap.
never ran out.
Oh,
of
no, no. That is frustrating too. And I've heard that it's like 80% of most stores are like what you're talking about, the crap processed
basically
foods.
cereal-based products, because
Yeah.
cake and cookies, crack, all of those things are all wheat. And if you look now, like I go through the stuff with the pet food, because the cat, we try to give them only the canned food that has the meat in it. And so now Walmart had 2 flavors that had no non-meat additives. It was just basically like, you know, meat byproducts, and whatever vitamins they throw in there, bones and whatever. But then they all the other ones are full of like basically just
Sweet
fillers.
potatoes,
Well, the sweet
rice,
potatoes, that's in the dog food.
brewer's
Yeah,
rice.
brewer's rice is now in everything.
Because you know, cats are famous, notorious.
For wanting to eat rice.
For eating grains. Yeah.
Yeah,
Nibbling on
Well,
grains.
so,
Yeah.
you know, it's just a filler. It's just a cost thing for them. To, let's see, how can we
Yeah.
make this cheaper and
Yeah.
put, you know, 5% or 10%, or you don't even know exactly what percentage of their food is now rice.
Okay, let's talk about that for a minute. That's actually one of my questions. So since you kind of broached this, let's just go ahead and talk about this. First of all, I don't know if Brett told you, but my dog came down with diabetes, and she was diagnosed on my birthday, okay? It was devastating. She lost her sight within 4 days of noticing these symptoms that, because the dog can't tell you, I'm not feeling right. We just thought, you know, she was getting older or whatever. And so she started drinking a lot of water, and she started, like, you could tell she couldn't see very well. And we were like, wow, this is not good. We need to just have her checked out. So we got an appointment, happened to be on my birthday, right? And by the time we were able to get her to the vet, she was completely blind.
Wow.
And then they said her blood glucose was sky high. Okay, keep in mind, we tried to find the best kibbles type food we could find, and then we started like trying to transition them onto the best dog food we could find. And I have this because I have these things, props, because I made a video about this because I was so pissed off about this happening. And so we were in the process of trying to kind of change over the diet to get them off the kibble and all of that. And my other dog was having a lot of digestive issues where she would just drop poop. I mean, just drop poop. And she wasn't a dog to poop in the house. And it was just like falling out. Seriously. I know that's disgusting, but it's true. And we didn't know what in the world was going on with her. And we're thinking, oh, well, she's old and she just doesn't have control anymore. No, because, and then we started kind of transitioning them into raw, but before we could even implement that, this all happened. And you know, oh my God. And the vet said that my dog's blood sugar was so high that it was like, whoa, wait, like,
and that's just feeding the dog basic dog food. So you're feeding the dog food, and they managed to get diabetes, which when you think about it is kind of mind-blowing, because I don't think the dog is getting up in the middle of the night and raiding the cupboards and eating, you know,
cookies and that's what's infuriating. And like I said, I made this video because I was so mad about it, but that's the same thing like baby formula. I got some baby formula for my granddaughter just in case we ran out of breast milk or whatever, because you never know. That was the best stuff I could find, and it still has corn oil in it. It's got, you know, just gosh, awful stuff in it. And that was the best I could find. And then, you know, if you look, like this has carrageenan in it, a thickener that gave me a nasty rash.
Yeah, that's
so
made from seaweed.
It's terrible. It's just terrible.
Is
We're giving this to our
or
dogs and, you know, cats too, but we don't have a cat. But, you know, and I feel horrible because I am responsible. I'm the one that feeds my animals, you know, and it makes me feel like crap. But you know what? That's our options. It's either you go raw, which is sometimes very hard to do and can be very expensive. And, you know, depending on, you know, where you're from, sometimes it's hard to get all the stuff that you really need. And so, you know, that was a very devastating thing because you trust these people who make, you know, animal, you know, products that they're gonna, you know, be good for them because I mean, it says so on the package. It's, you know.
It's just
well, there's a big problem with it because I see a lot of ads on Facebook, for instance, for all this great food for the dogs. And I can see all the posts from people saying that, you know, this really isn't all that great. It doesn't look like the picture. So why do you make a picture that looks like a fresh made meal when it's not going to look like that? And that, well, the second thing people should take into consideration is your dog doesn't give a darn what the food looks like. Yeah. So this habit of theirs of trying to make a can of dog food look like canned stew or something, as if the dog cares how thick the gravy is or even that it's brown, for heaven's sake.
The reality is it's another thing we've been lied to about.
Yeah. Yes.
It's just a perception
it's
thing.
infuriating.
Like, does this look good? Well, what does it matter what it looks like? What matters is if it is good. Because I'll tell you, the pile of stuff that I give the dog in the evening,
it don't look good at all.
Singularly unattractive because I don't like to eat a pile of different raw meats with a chicken foot on top.
That's what I give my
dog.
dogs.
Dog thinks it's miraculous.
Oh,
and
yeah.
He loves it. And it takes him, you know, less than 30 seconds.
He could go a half a pound of meat in less than a minute.
Less than a minute.
He's not even 6 months old yet.
Jeez. Okay, so Danielle, tell me, this is something I wanted to ask you. I'm just curious to see if it's similar to what I'm doing with my dogs. What exactly do you feed Baron? That's their puppy. He's so cute. But what kind of give us an idea and how many times a day, that kind of thing, and about how much, you know, take into consideration his age.
Well, I found a place called like Happy Puppy Site or something like that. I don't remember exactly. If you just, you know, Google raw puppy food, raw food for dogs or whatever, you'll find a lot of sites and people can just use some common sense and figure it out. They need a certain percentage of meat. They need, you know, obviously they need some fat and they need a certain amount of bone. And so the site gave some proportions and how much they should be eating based on what their adult weight will be.
Oh.
So for Baron, he needs approximately a pound a day. A little more, a little less, it's not that big a deal. They say you can simply judge by if your puppy is getting a little chubby, then feed him a little less. If he looks like he needs to put a little more meat on him, then you give him a little more. And they found, you know, if you give them too many organ meats, and it might give them the runs a little bit. If too much bone, and it might be too thick, et cetera, et cetera. So, and plus when they're small, you have to take into account, you know, the size of their jaw and their teeth and all that. And they said, you know, you don't give them any weight-bearing bones. Now, that's not like the marrow bones. You can give them the marrow bones that the dog will literally just eat the marrow out of it, and then he'll gnaw on it a little bit. But I give him like neck bones, which have more meat on them, and he likes to chew on them.
That's what I do.
I give him the marrow bones, and I actually found on sale a pack of beef chuck ribs, which really do not have enough meat on them to be worth it for a person to eat them, but good chew bone for the dog, and not so hard and heavy that it'll be a problem for their teeth. So then I try and find basically the cheapest meat that I can find that's good. So if it's a last day on sale, something, you know, so I'll get chicken breast, I'll get chicken. Now, Winnie's bigger, and he can eat like chicken leg quarters. which will have, you know, the drumstick, and that's what I was feeding the adult dog that we had. And that's just pretty cheap because that's 70 cents a pound, and it's a good amount.
Yeah.
And then you can buy like a giant piece of pork for, you know, less than $1.50 a pound, because otherwise you can't spend a lot of money. Like if you just give your dog ground beef, you can end up spending a lot of money. So you have to kind of balance it out and do what your budget can afford. You know, do what your budget can afford, because sometimes he'll get ground beef, you know, just from leftovers from us, or if I find something on sale and just mix it in, and I get beef heart, beef kidney.
We do beef heart, liver.
Chicken gizzards and hearts, and I buy the chicken feet.
Chicken feet, yeah.
And, you know, so it isn't all the same. And I also buy the canned salmon.
Oh, that's what we buy sardines, yeah. And boy, they love that. Those are vile little creatures.
Man, if I open when I'm making the dog's food and I open a can of that salmon, the dog and the cat go nuts.
Yep. But they're so vile.
Their minds over that stuff. And I give them that because I know that they do need some variety.
Yeah.
But I'm not overly concerned with it. And I do feed him. I make 1 pound containers, and I freeze them all, and I do like 30 days at a time.
You're so organized. Goodness.
Well, I have to make it's such a kind of a big project to cut up all that meat.
Yeah, that's true.
All this stuff up. I can't do it every couple of weeks. That's why I had to stop making homemade sausage, because I just didn't have the time. And just making 5 pounds of sausage is like a big project, and then I can like eat it in a week.
Yeah.
So like, I made all this sausage, yay, and then I'm like, it's all gone.
Man, well, it sounds really similar to what I'm doing, but we use a base mainly of ground beef, but we did the Sam's big old tubes, and that's what we've been getting, and you know, pretty decent price when we were just we were talking about the other day. But but I will tell you, since we've been doing this, the dog that had the issue with dropping poo is not doing that anymore. So if you don't think nutrition matters, whether it's human or an animal, you've lost your mind, because it does matter. And I am furious. I'm furious at this crap, you know, and that's why I wanted to ask you about that, because I think it is so incredibly important people know this, because they're trusting the dog food because, dogs must need something completely different, so they know what they're doing.
I mean, I looked at all the canned food, like when we first got the puppy, and I wasn't doing raw food for him then. I was buying the cans of the puppy food. And I read the labels of so many different cans of things. And most of them had a lot of crap in them.
Yes.
Wheat and soy or anything else. Or he would say, oh, no soy, no corn. And then you read it and it's like, it's full of peas and beans.
Yes.
And stuff. Like, why am I going to give that to the dog? And so I found 2 kinds, I think it was by Pedigree or something. And so I was giving him that until I think we switched him over at around 12 weeks or so, 11, 12 weeks. And I switched over to the raw, and, you know, he was super happy.
Oh yeah. My dogs are pretty darn happy. I'll tell you that. But you know, it does infuriate me, because now my dog can't see. And it's because of the diabetes, which is due to the food. And it wasn't like we're giving them cookies and chips and snacks, because that's not even in my house, you know. So it's very infuriating. Okay, let me get to some questions. Let me go ahead and ask you a couple of questions that I got from my followers. Okay, this is for Brett. How do you remain so consistent and disciplined with your meals? Do you ever plan to incorporate other carnivorous foods such as seafood, eggs, etc.? And you cannot give your typical answer. No, you've got to be a little more creative or something. It cannot be the same answer. Nope.
Well, the reality is my sanity is priceless to me. And I don't deviate because, number one, there's not a reason to. I love every bite of what I eat, every meal, every day. You can ask her if I didn't like it.
He wouldn't even believe me.
I wouldn't put it in my
I've
mouth.
been hearing that for years.
If you paid me.
I don't like it. I'm not going to eat it.
And I won't. I won't. And you know, I mean, look at me. I mean, I'm 59 doing what I did when I was 15 with exercise, and it's nuts what I'm capable of now. And it's not because I'm anybody special. I just don't want to be crazy anymore. And to me, there's no downside to eating how I eat. I don't want any other kind of meat. I don't ever look at what she's eating and think, you know, I think I'd like some of that tilapia instead. I'm thinking, damn, I get to eat bacon. She's eating that. I'm winning. You know, I mean, I just don't, and I really most of the time don't pay attention to what she's eating, because what's on her plate is none of my business.
To make fun of the chicken when I make the roast chicken, so he can go weak burner.
Well, it is.
Because I make different stuff all the time. Like last night.
You're horning in on my answer.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's true.
Well.
She's getting a little bossy over, a little camera hoggy. I'm telling you, she's getting out of control.
I love it.
No, and if
So
my
the second part was,
if I ever feel the need, I mean, I feel like I'm really tuned in. I mean, it's been over 2 years now. I got a good grip on where my body's at and if something's not agreeing with me. And the second that I feel deficient, weak, unable to do what I need to do, want to do, if I have to feel like I have to put any extra, maybe then I'll think of other meats. But until then, I mean, I am totally satisfied. I mean, it's not just, and it's convenient. It's easy. It's not hard. I don't feel like I'm deprived.
It's very simple.
I don't look at Dr. Baker and his ribeyes and drool. In fact, last Thanksgiving, I thought, well, I'll splurge and get a T-bone, because I used to love T-bones, and I don't dislike them now, but I just rather have my satisfying ground beef and bacon. And I'm halfway through this T-bone, and it's like filet.
There's nothing worse than buying a steak and having it go, oh, I could have just had a hamburger.
I mean, I thought,
Oh my God.
It tasted okay.
Jeez.
But I'm halfway through it, and I'm thinking, I really rather have my ground beef.
Okay, so do y'all have any pointers on respectfully influencing a family member to try carnivore?
Not really, because I've been completely unsuccessful in getting anybody to try. Okay, well, there's one exception who is a friend who she went carnivore and she joined the Zeroing In on Health, and as far as I know, she's doing pretty well. It's possible she's fallen off the wagon a couple of times, but hopefully she'll get back on track. But I do know that she saw the value of eating this way, and so she was very convinced. But I also understand that it's difficult when your whole family is not on board.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. So her whole family was not on board, although they were not against it. But it's difficult when you have a big family and friends and all that.
Very.
Stuff. Everybody's leading a different lifestyle than your own. It makes it very hard. I mean, for us in our little bubble here, it was easy for us to do this because we don't have anybody else telling us what to do. Both of us, our families are far away, and so nobody is saying anything to us or making us not do exactly what we want. But then at the same time, because there isn't anybody around seeing what we're doing, it's harder to influence people. I think that if, let's say my mom and dad lived down the street and they could see the change, they could see how easy it is for us to do it this way and how much sense it makes. I think then it would be easier if people are close by. But if they're not there and they already think that you're a little off the wall, then it makes it harder.
Well, I think it's like anything else. It's always going to be specific to the family member or friend. Not everybody's interested in listening.
Right.
In fact, as you know, people can be offended when they encounter somebody that's as healthy as we are, and they're not.
Yeah.
And
Sorry, I'm gonna interrupt.
oh,
Keep going.
and the best thing that you can do is to just be the example, because our health is impossible to ignore. The
Right.
changes that the physical transformations are impossible to ignore. The difference in how we interact with other people is impossible to ignore. And that's how I have approached this. I'm an advocate, and I will proselytize in the right situation, but as a rule, I just go about my business. And I wear my eat meat, drink water shirts everywhere I can. And that's pretty much the extent of it. But I have people who I haven't talked to in 20 years messaging me on Facebook going, "Hey, my wife's got fatty liver disease. Can you help us? Can you tell us what you're doing?"
That's awesome.
We see the pictures. And that's just, that's a way of being a good example without cramming it down somebody's throat.
Yeah.
That's my advice. Just be the example for somebody else to follow.
Like Dr. Ken Berry says, be the silent example. You don't need to shove your lifestyle in other people's faces. They will see. And eventually, if, when they're ready, they'll ask. So yeah, yeah. Okay, so I don't want to run out of time, and I've worked myself up to this one, and you know where I'm going to go with this one. Because it's not allowed. Normally, okay, for anybody who knows me, this is not allowed to be talked about because it embarrasses the crap out of me. So I've decided I have to venture out of my little comfort zone, and I'm going to go for it. So here we go. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I know that you've talked before about how big of a difference the change in diet has done for your libido. So can you kind of talk about what it was like before, so you can understand what is better? And I hear Danielle really does well with this one. So.
Well, I'm like you. I don't really like to talk about that. People who aren't like that I'm married to. But I have to say it's made a really big difference because, not to put too fine a point on it, but it's always been a question of what he wanted. And for me, it was like, take it or leave it. I mean, honestly, it wasn't great, but it was like, if you didn't remind me, I could probably never think about it. I mean, I've been that way like most of my adult life, really, I think, with the exception of when I was really young. So for me, it was a rather interesting change that I didn't expect. And also because I had gone through other physical changes because of menopause and everything. And so
Yes.
It made things more difficult just from a physical perspective, and, having to get some little helpers and et cetera. And so to feel basically physically like one was young again, and to, for everything just to be more desirable and everything was amazing to me, because it was also like it never had really been before. I mean, it was so much better. It's like all of a sudden you have a bunch of nerves that you didn't know that you had, or they weren't really working that well before. I mean, it was really, really very different, and it wasn't a mental thing really. It was a physical sensation thing that was very different. I mean, it's not like, I can remember exactly what things were like when I was, 20, when I was 25, 30, 35, and so that was really interesting to me, because I thought, this has got to be a healing thing. This has to a healing process where your tissues are better, so things are more responsive, your nerve endings are better. And we do know that diabetes and, you know, insulin issues and metabolic issues do affect your nerves.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, there's a reason that, you know, and it affects, you know, your brain obviously too, but it was really rather dramatic change.
Wow.
And it didn't happen overnight. And it was just something that I just started noticing. And yeah, it's really pretty amazing. It's really pretty amazing. And so I tell people, you've really got nothing to lose by trying, but you have to give it a really good try. And you also have to understand that for everybody, it's going to be different. I think for me, because my hormones were already in a different place because of my age, it's going to be different than the experiences I've read from other women online in the Women's Carnivore group and others who have gone through some remarkable things. You know, I mean, even healing things like endometriosis and stuff like that. I mean, it's really pretty amazing when you think about it.
Very amazing. Okay.
So do I get my turn to answer?
Well, she asked me.
Well, she asked both of us. It wasn't just you.
Well, now you can talk.
I want the raw copy. I want the raw video of this, the unedited version. Teaching tool. No, seriously, it really transformed both of us. And, you know, for me, it was all the years, you know, as she said, I basically I was the horn dog, and if I didn't bring it up, it might not ever happen again.
Well, probably would.
You know, that's literally what it looked like to me. And I also, when I was sick and whatnot, you know, pleasure of any kind was like a respite from the disaster that I was living, from the mental illness, from the anxiety, the whole 9 yards. And, you know, then the obesity and all the meds, and then, you know, suddenly things stopped working right. And, you know.
She giggles.
I'm laughing because, I mean, for men, it is a big issue. It's a big psychological thing if they can't perform like they want to perform.
But
when they want to perform.
And it was, that started improving as I went low carb, and then, you know, 3 years I walked off 94 pounds and got off all the meds.
Yeah,
but
just the way it was.
But it wasn't until Carnivore that I could feel sexy. I mean, literally. You know, everybody, you know, when you feel sexy, you feel sexy. It doesn't make a shit how old you are. And it was like, wow. I can, that's a good description. I feel like that. And dang, who knew this was possible? And I was 57, 58, you know, and I'm like, this is incredible. And then, you know, she's only a month behind me, and then as our bodies transform, and everything just works like it was designed to work. Yeah. And you get to experience genuine lust again, which is not a bad, it's a good, normal thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing. Yeah.
And I think it just makes all that it's a more mutually wonderful experience. It's never not amazing. Yeah. And it's never uncomfortable. And the communication in that regard used to be nil and none and not at all.
That's another thing. Now, this is an interesting aspect, I think, of the whole brain project, is because I'm basically an introverted person anyway, and then there were a lot of things that were extremely difficult to talk about. And it was nearly impossible for me to communicate with him on any level what I might have wanted or not wanted in the bedroom. And that is something that also changed. And that obviously makes a big difference, because an interesting aspect of simply being able to express oneself a little bit is that it makes everything better, because it makes him feel better too about what's going on. So you know, it's you know, really makes a big difference. I feel like I'm on the Dr. Ruth show.
This is great. But I will say, y'all, I'm going to have to scrub my brain because all I have right now is an image of Brett going, if you want my body and you think I'm sick.
That has never happened.
Yeah,
And it
no.
will never happen.
He'll never sing a disco song ever.
No. Disco still sucks. But yeah, it's one of the positives of this way of eating that I really don't think is talked about enough.
Yeah, agree.
And you know what it's done for us on a communications level is just extremely profound, and it's all positive. There has not been for either one of us, correct me if I'm wrong, there's not been any negative
No, there is no
that we could associate with this way of eating.
I mean, you can look and say, okay, well, you have to change your shopping habits, and you realize that your kitchen really should be completely redesigned. You know, you need different appliances or you use different pots and pans. Half of what I used to use, I don't use anymore.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so all of those things are different, and I wish I could build like a whole new house to suit our new lifestyle.
Right.
But the downsides, none of those things are really downsides because everybody knows most of the time, unless you actually did get to build your own house, things are never quite the way you want them anyway. And what you think you wanted, that later you're like, oh, actually, I wish I had done this. And the shopping is actually way easier because we know exactly what we want.
Yep.
And so I can go to the stores and see, and the only real planning that I have to do is now, because of virus crap, is who has what as far as supplies and inventory. And then the only time I'm really watching on sales is for the dog food. Like Harvey's is going to have chicken breast on sale this weekend, so I can plan ahead and get ahead, you know, for the dog food. But
It is
much simpler. It is much simpler to get. You know, even with the variety that I eat, like my son and I, we like chicken. I make chicken Alfredo. I make pork chops. I make roast chicken. And I make sauteed fish, you know, and all of those things I cook with a lot of butter. And, you know, then also we eat hamburgers and bacon for dinner sometimes too. If all of us are having burgers and I'm not, and it isn't raining, then I'll cook it on the grill. But I can't manage outside and inside at the same time. So I keep trying to find another kind of pan that I can split the grill and cook like fish and the hamburger on the grill. But I don't know if I can manage that and my fish not end up tasting like hamburger.
I am
or
so
the
not a grill
hamburger
person.
tasted like fish.
No, that'd be pretty.
Well, I can't cook them in the same pan, but I mean, even side by side, there's a lot of splatter, so I don't know if I can ever manage that without two grills.
It is funny how things do change, because for me it is so simplified. Like our pantry is so empty compared to the way it was. I'm like everything has to be just a certain place and everything turned a certain way. And so, you know, my pantry, you just looked at it and everything was organized, and I had these little containers and they were all labeled and stuff. And now it's like, it's empty. It's like kind of empty. And it's like just the main part of my refrigerator is full.
There's like salt, pepper, sage, and Italian seasoning. I think that's all that I use. I keep turmeric, which I put a little bit when I make the chicken broth. I put a little bit just to give it a nice color. And I gotta hurt you. It's like one teaspoon for, like, you know, 4 gallons.
She eats things I wouldn't put in my mouth on a dare. But of course, she doesn't have to worry about losing her mind.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing. And as far as
that's exactly right.
Yes, yeah, I'll add to that. As far as being with people on the straight and narrow, I have some very severe food allergies, so I have to be very careful. And there are a few things that I am allergic to that I like. And I have no trouble at all. I had no trouble at all not eating them, because getting really sick is a really good deterrent.
Yeah.
So if you know what the consequences are, I mean, I realize that there are some people who I guess are gluttons for punishment who will do things that they know are going to hurt themselves. But that's a different matter altogether than just, because I don't even really think it's a question of willpower. It's just like, I know this is good for me. Why on earth wouldn't you want to do what's good for you? You know, I can surely resist eating. It's like, okay, eggplants make my throat itch, and peas and all of these things. And, you know, peanuts will put me in the hospital. I have no trouble avoiding any of those things. And I know now it's been, you know, next month it'll be 2 years since I've had, you know, anything with grains in it. And I feel pretty sure that if somebody gave me a slice of toast, that it would probably make me quite ill. And I don't want to be ill.
It's not worth it. It's just not.
Yeah, it is just not worth it. If you know, it's like you wouldn't eat something that was rotten.
Yeah.
So why would I eat something that I know is going to make me sick or cause a major digestive upset?
Plus, you don't really care anymore. You kind of
and
like
that's the thing, is
lose that desire.
They're not appealing at all. And that's why I wish anybody trying this, please stick with it long enough so that you can start to lose those things. It's the same advice that I used to give people about quitting smoking. Just got to get past the 1 week or 2 weeks that it takes you to get past the nicotine, and then another month or two that it takes you to get past the habit. And that's the thing, is these are habitual things that you've been doing for 20 years or 30 years or 40 years. You can't expect that all of a sudden you're going to forget everything you knew before. It takes a little time to recondition yourself to new habits and a new way of thinking. Now that, you know, you took the red pill and you know the truth.
You said you were an introvert?
I know, right?
Yeah, but something you have to understand about introverts. We feel very comfortable in an environment where it's familiar. So I know Amber, and obviously I know you, so I have no problem because I can't see all those people that are watching us. Now, if there was an audience out there, that'd be a different story. It's like when I'm at work, that's my milieu, that's my area of expertise. I'm not shy there.
She used to be.
I'm much, well, you know, maybe it's the eating the meat that I'm not such a, you know,
she's
a
also
wallflower anymore.
much more assertive now than she ever in a million years would have been prior to Carnivore.
Oh yeah, I had a lot of trouble with jobs and with people before because it was so hard for me to confront people, and it was very easy to intimidate me. And I usually wouldn't do anything until I got pushed to the point where I would have like a terrible reaction where I would like lose my mind over something.
There is definitely, there's definitely something to that, because I mean, Brett knows. I mean, he's the one that, you know, talked me into doing the podcast that we do together, because I wanted to do something like that, but I was nowhere near being ready, and he just kind of pushed me into it a little bit, and I was like, you know what, what the heck? And I was like, this isn't hard. Wow, what? I can do this. So I do think there is something about that, the confidence, the way you feel, and you don't have all this crazy in your head, you know, telling you.
The indecision, or not so much indecision, but the inability to take a step, which is like the brain fog. It's like when I'm at an intersection now and the light changes and all these people are still sitting there. It's like, it only gets so green. It's like, am I the only person who has reflexes anymore? I mean, people are really so slow to react to things.
Yeah.
It's really kind of amazing to me. And these are situations that I see all the time when I'm in the store, when I'm other places, and you see people who are like frozen, and you can almost see that, you know, the gears are not turning. But like, people, you got to get all that sugar out of there because it's killing you, and you're so
it's
unaware.
true. It is true. I agree.
You know, we were oblivious to it when we were those people. I mean, you were unaware totally, and things that I thought were perfectly normal, come to find out they're anything but normal.
Well, it might be normal, but it's not right.
And I think that the whole thing with the sugar and the brain fog and everything, it affects different people differently.
Right.
Because people have different personalities and different tendencies. And I also think, because probably on a genetic level, that some people are just affected differently. I mean, I know people who have made much better decisions in some aspects of their lives than me, but then in other aspects of their lives, I think they've lost their mind. And for me, it's like the opposite. Like all the stuff before that I made really poor decisions on, now I'm making much better decisions. And then in other areas I was fine and I'm still fine. I mean, I think it just all depends. But
Yeah.
I think generally speaking, I think anybody who eats this way can expect, can expect a big difference in their thought process and just being able to think more clearly.
Yeah.
And just feel better about everything.
I agree.
And the absence of fear is enormous. Because when I before Carnivore, as I look back, I was eat up with anxiety and worry constantly about everything, useless nonsense. I would fret and worry.
I would get text messages literally all day long.
Oh,
And
wow.
problems, things that were wrong, they had to be solved right away. Something had to happen right away. And I'm like, his favorite thing was about me like not answering the phone. What if I was in a ditch? And I'm like, well, you should call 911, not me. But so, which you can't really say that to a crazy person.
Not an expected
Whoa.
positive outcome.
Yeah. No, but he would
Whoa.
fret over all sorts of things all the time. And it's funny because you talk about how I was rather introverted and, had a problem with unfamiliar situations or being, socially awkward or whatever. Now, he was not like that, but he had this other anxiety. So he could get up on stage and be in front of all these people and do all this stuff, but then he would be completely paranoid about other things. So
wow.
It's that same thing about how different people get affected differently.
Yeah. Yeah. Getting up on
And I
stage
really-
and doing that.
And I really think that, it's like all of these things that they don't know what causes it, about like different types of mental illness and, cancer.
Inflammation's causing it.
I think it is all caused by inflammation.
90% of it anyway.
Yeah, a good bit of it. Now, obviously, there are some people who simply do have
5%. The other 5% is genetic, and the other 5% of the remaining 10 is environmental. I
Yeah.
believe the rest of it's 90% physiological
inflammation
from what we eat.
I mean, even if we look at this virus now, who are the people who are being affected? People who are metabolically compromised.
Yeah. And then you hear the stories about
Underlying
who are healthy. And then you see a picture and they're overweight. And I'm not shaming that or anything, but if you have excess weight like that, there's something metabolically not right. So you may not have been diagnosed, you may not know you have something, but it's there somewhere. You just haven't been diagnosed yet.
Yeah, and I think even the people who sometimes they say, well, this person, they were otherwise healthy.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
We don't really know what was going on with them because
That's right.
If you'd looked at
Skinny
me,
fat.
if you'd looked at me before I went on this diet, and I would go to the doctor and they were amazed. Oh, you're not on any medications. Your cholesterol is okay. Everything. You are perfectly healthy. Well, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
Because, I wanted to lose 10 pounds. And when I went carnivore, I lost 28. And then I had arthritis. Now, what is arthritis caused by? It's an autoimmune disorder. So obviously I had those problems just on a much lower level than some people. Because.
But she was in perfect health.
But according to the doctor, everything was fine.
Right. Yeah.
I still couldn't believe that I wasn't on any medicines.
Yeah. People don't understand that. They think because they're not diagnosed that they're healthy. And, like, oh, well, I'm overweight, but I'm healthy. No, you're not. No, you're not. There's something not right. It just hasn't manifested completely.
Right. And it isn't really just a question of just weight loss. I mean, this is evidenced by people who go on the carnivore diet and some of them gain weight initially.
Yes.
Or some of them lose weight and then they gain some back and they lose some. And it's like you just have to be patient and let your body heal itself first And then I think you will reach some sort of stasis at some point, and that could take a long time.
Yes.
And it took however many years it took for you to get to this point. It's going to
Exactly.
take a long time to get out of it, and then at some point it'll level out, and you'll get to whatever your normal weight should be. Which somebody's normal weight, some people are going to be naturally very thin, I think, and some people are going to be naturally bigger. What are you laughing at?
Yeah, why are you laughing? This is funny. I'm just going to tell you because it's usually him, blah, 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 blah. And then he's just
You haven't said anything wrong.
no.
Not.
This is awesome. It's awesome.
I wish I didn't have to wear my glasses, but I can't see you clearly without them. So.
That is so funny. Yeah, because Brett's not one that's used to being kind of quiet in the background. I'm loving it. This is great.
She can talk as long as she wants. The only time I want to say something is when she's interrupting, or if she starts repeating herself. Then I feel compelled to say something.
Okay.
I'm weird like that.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask you something, Brett. Okay, so if you had to give one piece of advice for somebody who was just starting carnivore, what would it be? And do not rattle off those basic rules. You have to be creative. Don't do it. Don't you do it.
Yeah, I can't give them the directions because hell, that would be helpful.
No, you got to think out the box.
Okay,
No,
outside of following the directions that I'm not allowed to discuss, I would say the most important thing to do is to be patient and learn to trust your body, because we've been taught to fear everything about our existence in ridiculous ways. And I think this virus nonsense has really exposed the depths of that programming quite clearly, because, we're taught to be afraid of everything. Don't eat bacon, it's got nitrites on it. Oh, there's sugar in it. It could do this, it could cause that. Yeah, I've been eating it 3 times a day for 2 years. I think you're full of crap. But I think that fear is so ingrained in our psyches, and
Yeah.
why did we eat things that caused us so much trouble? Because we genuinely believed it was healthy, it was the right thing to do. You with your dog, a classic case, you were doing what you thought was the right thing to do, and we were just fed a line of crap.
We were taught not to trust our own judgment.
Exactly.
Yes.
Thought that, well, you need an expert. Well, who is this expert? And are they really expert?
And experts damn near killed me.
Yeah.
I took, you can ask her, I was compliant. Staying on top of my meds was one of the few things I could do when I was crazy. I could do that and make a little music. That was about it. I took them because I believed that was better than the alternative. The alternative would be worse. And it was all a big pile of crap.
Yeah.
There's never been a study to show that depression is the result of a pharmaceutical deficiency. But there's no evidence to show that a serotonin deficiency is the cause for depression. But yet that's the disease management answer.
Oh, yeah.
Is take these pills, and if they don't work, we'll try some different ones. And then eventually maybe we'll find the right combination, except for Brett, who nothing really worked for very long, and it just made things worse. And I got crazier and crazier.
Yeah.
So
She'll agree.
About the way these medications work, because what happens is they find, okay, somebody has a certain problem, but if we give them this, it changes that a little bit. So we think, well, that means that you're better. And I noticed something at one point where I did take antidepressants for a short period of time.
Look
And
at who you're married to.
I can't remember exactly which one it was. Might have been the
You were on Zoloft.
Zoloft.
You were on Wellbutrin.
I was on
and then-
Wellbutrin and
then Zoloft.
And I think it was the Zoloft that I just stopped taking it, because what I noticed about it was the way that it worked. And I think it's very interesting that I was actually able to think through this as I analyzed how I was feeling about things. It made me not care. And that's how it, quote unquote, made me feel better, was because it made me not care. And so I was caring about things, and that made me worry. And a lot of that was a result of, I had one of those horrible bosses at that time. I was working for a woman who was a terrible person, and I didn't get along with her, and I had major job issues, and then I got a crazy guy at home, and then, you know, dealing with the kids and financial problems. So it's like before, when I had been diagnosed with depressed with my first husband, and I thought, you know what? Maybe it's not that I'm depressed. Maybe my life just sucks. Maybe I've got a good reason to be upset. And I only took that medication one time. But anyways, fast forward, I realized that it made me not care. And I thought, you know what? This is very dangerous way to feel. Because caring about how you react to things and how you're feeling is what regulates your behavior. And I thought, if I just start really not caring about stuff, then I'm not going to change my life. I'm not going to get a different job. I'm not going to do whatever I need to do. And I was like, I can't take this stuff anymore. I think it's doing weird things to my brain.
Wow.
And so I stopped taking it. And, you know, and our lives changed. And I just kind of realized that my problem with, and I had had a lifetime of basically what I would call melancholy. And I think there's a name for that, where you just basically, you know, what, like, maybe I was goth before there was goth or whatever, you know, like, but I think that was an issue of feeling helpless about your life and stuff like that, or being able to change things, or you couldn't make things be the way that you want. But those are problems that if your brain is working right, you can solve.
Right.
And once you're eating meat and you're not all fogged up and not knowing what you're doing, then you're like, well, now I can do something about the things in my life that I don't like, or that I'm unhappy about, or whatever.
And if you send $29.95, she will send you a tract and a pamphlet. Save your life.
Well, I realize everybody's different in that regard, but I really think that a lot of people who suffer low levels where they're unhappy or they feel disconnected and stuff like that, you're not depressed. You need to stop eating carbs, and you need to eat meat. And then if once you've done all of those things, you still have something wrong, then yeah, okay, maybe you do need some sort of therapy and everything. But the first thing the doctor does is put you on an antidepressant.
Yeah.
Well, you need some Valium, lady, because you shouldn't be getting so upset when you get your period or something like that. You know, I mean, the first person who put me on antidepressants was the gynecologist.
Oh, wow. Wow. I think actually we got to most of the questions, but Brett, did you have any last minute things you wanted to say, to anything that you feel is important? I know you kind of talked a little bit about the advice you would give without going into the basic rules. I'm very proud of you. That was awesome. Yeah, that was out of the box. Wow. I'll let you talk now.
Well, thank you. No, I'm just, after 2 years of living this way, it just still gets better. Every day it's better. And you know, I'm doing things physically at 59 that I hadn't done since I was 15, 16 years old. I'm now incorporating wind sprints into my morning walks. If you'd have told me 5 years, if you'd have told me 3 years ago that I would be doing wind sprints of any kind, I'd have probably hit you. Just cause that was just so ridiculous. You just needed to be knocked out so you quit saying ridiculous things. Because it's just an absurdity. And I'm going to run tomorrow morning. I wanted to do some sprints, and
He's doing this like it's barely light outside. It's like 6:30 in the morning, so I get up at 6 and I start cooking, and then as soon as he comes out here, so by 6:30 he's out the door with the dog. The dog's had his half pound, and so they're out the door down the street.
And what do I call that, Brett?
You couldn't pay me enough to do that.
do what, Amber?
What do I call the hours you keep?
Grandpa hours.
Gets up early and goes to bed early.
Actually,
and then gets up early.
It's more military time because that, you know.
Yeah, he gets up. It isn't just early. Like some people would say, get up early, 5:30, 6 o'clock. No, he's up at like 4:30 in the
4 a.m.
Crazy.
But see, you know, for me, that's kind of, you know, her time is after everybody's going to bed. Well, I enjoy that hour, couple hours.
He likes that alone time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's just me.
And the dog is still in the bedroom, so he's not harassed by the dog.
Oh, okay.
The rest of the day, he really has to. The puppy's like constantly there. I mean, you can put him in the cage for a while every now and then, but he can't be all day in the cage, and he still has to go get walked and all that. So.
And I don't. You wouldn't. Why have one if you're going to keep it caged up? Basically, guys, we're just examples of what happens when you follow the directions, because that's all we're doing. We're not, you know, I don't have some vast well of willpower, neither does she. We're not super disciplined people by any means. If you could just walk through our house, you'd see that. Go into my music room, you would probably have a psychotic break because it's.
Yeah. And I think actually we are interestingly a good example of how different the carnivore diet can be between two people. Because I eat cheese sometimes, and I cook, you know, I use cream sometimes, and I put cheese on stuff. Now, I'm not a big, like, slab of cheddar on a burger, but I'll make the sauteed chicken, I'll put a little cream, and you put a little Parmesan on it, so it's kind of like an Alfredo knockoff. And I will have pork rinds with brie, you know, cheese and stuff like that. I'm on again, off again with the coffee stuff. And I eat a wide, you know, what to me is a wide variety of meats. If I could afford it, I would eat a bigger variety, because I would be eating way more seafood and more different kinds of fish than just, I eat salmon and tilapia because they're the cheapest ones that I like.
Right.
But if I had my druthers, you know, I'd be eating tuna and swordfish and halibut and all of that. And I'd be eating shrimp more often, and I'd be having lobster every now and then. And I would probably have steak more because I would buy better steaks. The steaks that I can afford are borderline. So if you're going to have a borderline, I'd rather just eat a hamburger.
Yeah.
But I still love my hamburgers and my bacon. And every day for breakfast, I have like 5-6 slices of bacon. And every single day for lunch, I have a hamburger and 4 slices of bacon. And it's a marvelous lunch. And the guy that I work with, who actually, he's like a keto person at least. But he tells me, he goes, you have the best lunches. And I'm thinking to myself, well, you can eat it too.
Brett, you're cracking me up.
I don't even know what he's laughing at. But, you know, because people think that it's weird that he eats, you know, the ground beef and the bacon, the same thing every meal. But it's like, because that's what he likes.
Yeah.
And that's the great thing about this, is you just eat what you like. And okay, yes, your limit is animal products, but there's a hell of a lot of animals out there.
There really is.
There's a huge variety of animals. There's, even within any animal, there's many different cuts of meat. There's all kinds of different ways to cook it. It is not boring at all, because your taste buds do change. And
I agree.
And all that other stuff just becomes a distant memory. And now you're like, eh.
Yeah, you don't really care. It's not a big deal. Anyway, y'all, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. It's been a blast. And Danielle, seriously, you crack me up, because Brett's just sitting there going. it's great. For him to be silent is awesome.
It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed
It
it.
Thanks for
was.
having us, Amber. Very much.
Yeah, it was a blast. And y'all hit that subscribe button and go follow Brett if you're not already. I'd be surprised if you're not, but if not, I will put all the information below. And follow Danielle too. She's awesome.